Hey y'all, this is Culture Soup, where tech, culture, and business collide. It's a podcast that spoons up everything hot from social media. I'm your host, L. Michelle Smith, and each episode we bring you some of the most notable and not yet notable thought leaders in tech, business, and culture. We live in an age where gender equality and talks of equal pay are all around us. But more frequently than not, the plight of the woman of color, and even more specifically Black women, is left out. I was very grateful to learn that McKinsey and Company and the Lean In organization did a study called Women in the Workplace. And in that study, it talks about the differences between white women and women of color, and also Black women, and what we face in the workplace. It's so important to me because, guess what? I'm a Black woman. But it was the first time that I'd actually seen data that drew a straight line between what we knew to be true as women of color in our feelings and the empirical data that proved that our feelings were real. Frequently, I've been asked to speak on the topic of women of color in the workplace. I've even written about it. You may recall my article on microaggressions that was recently published in Black Enterprise. If you haven't read it, I suggest you do, because what happened to me in that deli was exactly a personification of what has happened to me and countless other women of color in the workplace. There is a concept called double outsiders, and I mentioned this on the episode with Jared Hill. And what that means is, as a Black woman, as women of color even, we are the exact opposites of what is expected in the workplace, especially when you consider who has the power. So let's just say that the majority typically sees someone like me and assumes that they are support or admin or housekeeper or janitor, but maybe not even that. Maybe even the intern, maybe even the junior associate, but hardly ever the one who's in charge, hardly ever the boss. And unfortunately, with the retirement of Ursula Burns, who was the CEO at Xerox for some time, when she retired, we had 0 African American women holding the reins at the tippy top of a Fortune 500. Think about that. Now there's more data. And there's data that shows that there's more African American women entrepreneurs than any other group. This data was actually out there before the McKinsey report. But the McKinsey report also drew another straight line between those growing numbers of business owners who are Black women and those Black women leaving corporate America. There's also data that shows that Black women hold more advanced degrees, or more degrees at all, than any other group. So what is going on? Black women are smart. They're educated. But we're back to square one. Institutionally, people just don't expect us to run things. Which is why I'm very pleased to have our next guest on the show. She reminds me a lot of myself. If you recall, I ran an agency for about a decade in Dallas, Fort Worth. Very proudly, my agency was the only one owned by a black woman that was full service in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I will say this again, it was full service. And I say that because people assume, because I am a black woman, that it was a diversity agency. Ladies and gentlemen, it was not. We prided ourselves in having the entire pie, from corporate communications to consumer public relations to franchise public relations to international public relations. I could enumerate a whole line of capabilities. And yes, my 100% owned agency did it all. So since I've been back in corporate America, well, actually, this is my first time in a big corporation. I spent most of my time in global agencies serving said big corporations. But since I've been on this side, and right now I call myself an extrapreneur because I just can't fight the itch. I have to scratch that itch, which is the entrepreneur. I take it upon myself to pour into the black women that I see that are trying to run businesses, trying to launch them, and I should say successfully running their own businesses. From my makeup artist, and I say that with an S because there are a few in different cities, my stylist, my web designer happens to also be a marketing pro, a PR pro, and she is a techie. Her name is Summer Galvez, and I met her, of all places, at my church. Now, my church is different too. It's not, I don't think it's typical at all. The marketing department is off the chain, led by Keelan Moore. Shout out to Keelan. I often meet my church members at conferences where I'm speaking. And I'm so thrilled to see them among Fortune 500 marketers learning the exact same thing. Well, Summer is an extension of that marketing team, but she contracts with SummerG Creative. Without further ado, meet my friend, my web designer, my webmaster, Summer Galvez.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Summer has a few things to talk about, but first I want to brag on her. She did such an excellent job on my site, and I've gotten so many compliments about it because it's not just modern and clean, but of course it's chock full of information, but you can actually get to the information in a really user-friendly way, which is so important because I needed some place for my content to live. It wasn't all over the internet, but I felt like it was just dispersed and it wasn't all in one place. And Summer was able to build something that was user-friendly, easy to navigate, and it looked good too. So if you guys need any kind of web services, and she gets marketing and PR too, call Summer. And your company is called?
It's SG Creative Agency. So it's summergcreative.com.
Awesome. And Summer's in business for herself. So before we start talking about entrepreneurship and even how she sits at the intersection of tech culture and business, let's have our culture soup moment. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so as you know, I always pull either a hashtag, a trending topic, or even a topic that's popular on the internet, on the interwebs, that's for sure. And when I think about you, and we'll unveil why a little bit later, one of those topics that never goes away online, and you can see people debating about it, you can see people being opinionated about it. You have coaches out there to talk about this topic all the time. I can think of a few different faces and names that
Okay.
talk about relationships. And seems to me lately on your IG and on Twitter, people have been shooting you questions about this very topic.
They have. Because you can't escape relationships. I mean, it's everywhere you turn. Whether you're married, whether you're in platonic relationships, there's so many different levels. So I think we're all just trying to figure out how can we be better friends, better family members, better lovers to those around us. How do we engage and have more meaningful relationships? And unfortunately, you know, social media doesn't make it any better, because that has truly disrupted how we communicate on an authentic level.
Right.
Know?
So let's talk about that, because I have seen people do things that they wouldn't typically do on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media in general. I remember one time there was this man that I had no idea he was having a hard time with his wife. But at some point he changed his relationship status to "it's complicated." And I said, whoa, like, did I really want to know that? Have you seen people kind of use the social webs as a tool in a way that maybe they wouldn't have if they didn't have it when it comes to relationships?
Well, you got to look at what social media is. It's now connecting you with people all over the world. So this is not even just people within your immediate community, your immediate family and friends, and people you went to school with. Now we're talking about strangers who are now connected to you. And I think a lot of people are using it to, you know, set up false pretenses or appear to be something that they're not. Or maybe they're trying to connect with other people and, you know, not truly being authentic about what's happening in their real lives. So it's like on social media, I can paint this picture of what I want you to believe about me. Or I want, if I'm in a relationship, but I want other female attention, then I need to put out there that that I'm not married, or that it's complicated, you know, to give someone else false hope or make them think there's an opportunity. And so social media is just full of this fantasy, really, is what it is. It's a lot of fantasy. It's a lot of fakery, you know, fraudulent activity. And I think you have to really, really work harder to vet the people that you're communicating with, because people will sell you a dream in a minute. So, you know, you got to do your due diligence. You still got to get references, ask around, you know, not just take what you're being told online, you know, and then there's catfishing. We haven't even gotten into that. There are people stealing attractive pictures and posting profiles as if that is them to get attention or to have somebody to talk to and fill a void in their lives. So then there's that, you know. So
do you think that the internet and social media has improved communications and dialogue around the topic of relationships? Or are we just ignorant at a higher level?
I think it has allowed us, obviously, greater reach, and now you can connect with people that otherwise you may have had to go through other channels to get to. So it's improved communication in the way that, you know, you have more access. But I definitely think it's hindered us in how to have authentic conversation and authentic interaction, because now everybody's just, you know, they're Twitter thugs, you know, thumb thugs. Just you say things on the interwebs that you otherwise would not say to somebody's face, you know.
And I always wonder, too, about some of these relationship coaches out there. Some of them are credentialed. Others of them are not. But they talk a good game and they have a great followership.
Credentialed from where?
Well, yeah. The great University of Relationshipology. No.
Right.
No, but I mean, like, when you think of, like, Paul Brunson, like, he is an established voice. Yeah. I mean, and there are others, like, there's a continuum where you get to this other end of the spectrum and it's like, who is that? They're a little sketchy, but they have this huge following and people believe them.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think people in general are always looking for hope. So if there's this figure, this expert in an area that seems to have their life together, you know, and they say beautiful things and they know how to word things just so, and it gets me riled up and it evokes the emotions that I need somebody to speak to, then I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
I like what he's saying. It sounds good. That doesn't mean that, and this is not against Paul, because obviously I don't know him personally, but just people in general, you know, it could be anyone. What is your message, and is your message connecting? And I think because there are so many people that are looking for what is their next step in life, whether it's a more healthier relationship, love life, or if it's a different career, a career change. People are just looking for someone who can give them hope that there's better out there. So if it's a relationship coach that can tell you or guide you on how to date better, or, present yourself better, then you're going to gravitate towards that, because that's in your life. And people are looking for fulfillment somewhere.
Yeah. There's one thing that kind of turns me off when I see a male coach zero in on women and tell them, this is what you need to do to catch a man. This is how you correct yourself in order to, get the holy grail that is a man. And I'm like,
as if that's the holy grail.
Yeah. And as if we need to correct all of these things because we're doing all of these things wrong.
Right.
And of course, they're doing everything right.
Right.
Does that bug you too? Because it seems like there's a lot of that out there.
It does, but again, there's an audience for that. So unfortunately, there are a lot of broken women who are looking for some sort of male leadership, male guidance. I'm not saying all, obviously, but I think their audience is a woman who feels like she needs a man to tell her how to be a better woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got nothing. I'm not in that audience. Yeah,
right. I'm like, I got nothing.
I don't need that. Yeah, that's.
I saw somebody post a meme, and it was talking about how, you just need to wait, for the right man. And then towards the bottom there, it said, you'll find someone who will ultimately be your soulmate, and he'll protect you and he'll guide you. And then it got into like correct you. And I was like, whoa, wait. That meme took a turn that I wasn't ready for. Like, why do I need to be corrected?
Yeah.
And I mean, the way they set up this power structure just in a few lines. And I was like, wow, somebody's going to read that and say, oh, that means so much to me. And that scares me.
This is a whole nother podcast. This can go so many other ways that I think we should. Because I think that in general, again, there's an audience of women who see validation in marriage. If they're not married, then... And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who feed that. So it's like, I'm in my late 30s. I'm 37, and I'm single and have never met anybody I wanted to marry. But people will ask you, so what's wrong with you? Or why are you single? Why aren't you married? Well, I mean, you're assuming that marriage is some goal for me. Right. That's an assumption, and that's your assumption. You know what I mean? And that's not every woman's. Things at times are different. And I certainly believe in the sanctity of marriage. And I would love to be married if that's what God has for me. But I'm just going to be honest with myself. My life is very full as a single woman. Could it be fuller with a spouse and children? Sure. But I'm not, that's not on my list of, to-dos, to meet a man to complete me and guard and cover me and,
That's healthy, Summer. I'm glad to hear that, because I run into a lot of women that are just so bent on just no matter what. They got to get married. Someone even told me, I just want a shot at it. And I'm like, wow, that really puts you in a precarious position, because that means that you're going to marry the first person that comes your way that offers you a ring. And I just want to tell her, I'm single again. So I know what it is to be married. I know what it is to be single, and I tell them every time, it's just a different flavor of trouble. Like you have your issues when you're single, you have your issues when you're married. The difference is that you have somebody else's along with you, which is a totally different ball of wax.
And that nobody's is the part. Hey, listen, that's the part that makes me slow down and say, I don't want to rush into anything. Society would have me believe I need to rush, and especially I do have a biological clock, obviously, like that's a thing. That's not some myth that's out there like, oh, you have to. No, really, I cannot produce indefinitely, right? So if I want to be a mother, then this has to be at the forefront of my mind, like reproduction. And I don't want to do that outside of marriage. At least that's not where my head is at yet. I haven't settled on just co-parenting being an option or anything, but at the same time, I just have to be honest with myself and say, I don't want to rush into anything and acquire another's baggage.
Right.
I like my bags. My bags are enough for me at this point.
You know your own bags.
Yeah.
You know them.
Yeah. And I'm comfortable with my bags. Like, I have worked pretty hard for these to be very light bags. You know
yes,
what I mean?
little ones.
So yeah, so it will take a lot for me to feel like things were different or another way. But there are women who need a spouse, and it's not a dig at them. You know, there's something. I think it's just different strokes for different folks.
I'm sure our listeners are wondering why I spent all this time on relationships. And it's because you have something coming down the pipe. So I want to talk about what that is first, and then we're going to rewind a little bit and talk about Summer G and how we ended up here as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, as Summer. So what's coming down the pipe that made me ask you about relationships?
Well, I am launching my very own podcast called DearSummerG.
Yay!
Yeah, it launches in January of 2019. It's a Q&A podcast where I say, ask me anything. And it really started from my social media, which I got on Twitter back in 2009. And it was never meant to be a business account or just to push, products and services that I was offering on a professional level. It was just me being myself. And that's really how my social media following has evolved, just through organic relationships and real conversation. I did an internet radio show back in 2009 to 2011. And I had a segment called the Ignorant Topics, #Ignorant Topics. You can still search that on Twitter, by the way, and still come up with some of those ignorant topics. You can reference those. And so it was just a way of introducing really taboo material to the Twitter timeline and engaging with different people. And there's some celebrities who engaged as well. So, it was fun. And it was me. I'm a Gemini. I'm super random. So today I might be,
Okay, wait, Gemini. That means you have an evil twin? Like, there's twins?
No, that's a myth. We get such a bad rap. Yeah, no.
Okay.
So Geminis, we do have multiple personalities. But that doesn't mean that one's good and one is bad. Yeah. Like we're normally very, very creative. We're fluid thinkers. We can be here, we can be there. We're very, very, very understanding to other people's perspectives. So for instance, if you and I are discussing a topic and I feel very strongly about one way and you feel you're on the polar opposite end of that discussion, I can still empathize with you. Like I'm not so hell-bent or stubborn in my opinion that I can't even see what you're saying. I can't understand your point of view. And Geminis are very much that way. We're kind of dual-minded in that way. And so it allows us to be very flexible, So, yeah. So I don't have an evil twin.
Well, that's good.
But sometimes, DearSummerG speaks to that. So there'll be subject matter there that is business centric, where we're talking about, things that relate to me in a professional world. So some of the things I talk about with my clients or topics that come up on the timeline that I'm speaking to in terms of, it could be marketing or freelancing or business startup or tech. But then there's also the other twin that loves engaging on a personal level, and that your favorite song lyrics. I'm a 90s R&B junkie. Like that is era. Okay. I love getting into lyrics and talking about music, or it can be relationship topics. It, budgeting and extreme couponing. It could be a number of things.
Right.
I'm here, then everywhere. So that's what
and you're going to have experts along.
Absolutely. So I've acquired a pretty fair network of friends in the industry, celebrities, people in entertainment, friends and mentors and clients that I want to give some shine to. So you'll be on the podcast as well. We're going to talk about
all right.
We're going to talk about communication and tech and all the wonderful things that you've done in your space. The blog will definitely not just be my opinion. It's not just, what does some think, but it's engaging some of those other experts and people who can offer dynamic commentary to the subject as well.
Awesome.
And some of it will be a little bit off kilter. There's a couple celebrities that I'm going to pull for topics that have nothing to do with what you would associate them with. Mm-hmm. But it'll also kind of show a different side to them as well.
Well, that sounds fun. So everybody, until she launches, you need to follow her on Instagram and Twitter at DearSummerG, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And then we don't have a launch date yet, but we know it's going to be sometime in...
It'll be early January.
Okay. So you got to follow her online so that you'll know when it's going to launch. Okay? All right, great. So, Summer, how did we get here? Okay. So now you're launching a podcast. We know that you run a very successful web design marketing PR agency. So tell us how you got into entrepreneurship. When were you bitten by the bug? When were you bitten by the tech bug? Just tell us about Summer.
Those are going to be separate answers. The first, I would say entrepreneurship. I've been hustling since I probably got my first dollar. Okay. I remember being in elementary school drawing on book covers, on the backs of book covers for $1 because I was an artist. So I was like, oh, you like my bubble letters? You want me to draw bubble letters? Oh, that's $1.
Bubble letters. I remember those.
My early hustle, draw book covers. I think I had a candy locker in high school. I wrote papers. I would write people's end of year papers, essays. Oh, yeah, that was the thing. Some people probably.
I think we're out of that, that time frame where they can come get you.
Statute of limitations is expired.
Yes.
Yeah. But I've always been. I'm an only child, so I've always been, just very self-reliant and looking for ways to, just take care of myself, whatever that meant. Mm-hmm. So obviously, earning my own dollar. Mm-hmm. is a part of that, So I was always looking for something to do in high school that way. I discovered web design in high school. We were back then, so this is before the high school. This is 1998. So this is obviously before any sort of social media. Back then, social media was chat rooms. So like AOL or Yahoo chat rooms. That's as good as it got for you to connect with somebody in another country or another city. And a girlfriend of mine, we both played soccer, and I didn't even have a computer at the time. She had a computer at her house, and she discovered this AOL chat room. And so I would, after practice, I would go over her house and talk in the chat rooms until probably 9:00. That's all I had to go home, right? And if you wanted to back then, post your pictures, you had to build a website, Angel Fire, GeoCities, Tripod, Lycos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, those were the hosting providers for you to have your own site, but it was all inline HTML, right? Mm-hmm. So there was no profile for you to set up.
I had a GeoCities site.
We all did. We all had probably 5
and I put it was a guest book.
That's how I got into coding. I just wanted to be social. I wanted to meet other people and flirt with boys, and that's how I could get my pictures online. I had to build a website. And it's so funny. There is actually a website I built in 1999 that is still live.
You're kidding me.
I'm not. It is awful.
You going to point us to it? Or
I'm not. It'll be.
It's not representative of your work today.
No, it's not even that. It's humbling because it's gosh, I showed it to somebody and I was like, there was no CSS. There were no scripts. Mm-hmm. There was inline HTML code, and you had to know hexadecimal codes, and you had to when you look at it, there's rolling GIFs and animation. Mm-hmm. It's ugly. It is awful, but it makes me feel good because I'm like, I was doing this before anybody, back in the gap before most people were even on this. I was sitting, typing away at my computer, head down.
So when did tech and entrepreneurship come together for you?
Honestly, it was more necessity than anything. I remember launching or trying to launch a business with a friend, and we had hired somebody off Craigslist. Now, mind you, this is during a time where I wasn't actively designing websites. I still knew code, but I had other jobs. So this wasn't something I was doing, at that time. And so we were like, hey, I can give him enough guidance to get this site up. We found somebody on Craigslist for like $250, or maybe not even $500. It may have been like $500. It may have been $500. And so we're like, okay, we're going to hire this guy to do the website. Whatever he doesn't do, I can pick up and do, Needless to say, we gave him a deposit and never heard from him again. And so it was an expensive lesson. Like, you know what, Summer, you already know how to do this. Just put your nose, go get back to it, catch back up, see what you've missed out on and get back to it. And that was really it. It was just necessity.
So when was Summer G Creative actually launched? How long has it been around?
Well, that's actually a rebrand. So the initial company was Print Media, Prent Media, which was launched in 2002 while I was still in college. It was public relations and entertainment media. And so that was the name of the company until early 2018 when I went through a rebrand. And it just made sense to rebrand because everybody already knew it was my company, that Print Media was me. But because of the following that I had established online and the relationships, I just felt like it was time for me to come out, from the background and actually name it, after myself.
So tell us about the services that you provide.
Well, we're a full-scale boutique marketing agency. So everything from PR to marketing strategy, website and graphic design, social media management, photography and video, just a wide array of stuff. And my clients really love it because they come to me to do everything. So it's like, hey, here's the objective, and I can pull all the players in to say, here's our objective, here's our timeline, and we start brainstorming from there.
Yeah, well, you have several clients that appreciate your work. I'm one of them. There's one other client that I like to talk about because we actually share a relationship with them, and that is our home church, Concord Church, which is actually how I got exposed to your work. So what do you do for Concord? So
Concord has been a client since 2012. It initially began as just social media management. And since then, they've also brought me in for other projects. So presently, I'm handling all of the email marketing. They also have an annual preaching conference. And it's in its 24th year now. So last year, SGCA served as the complete marketing management company for all of the tasks around this really large preaching conference of over 1,000 preachers from around the world. So that was a great campaign to do last year. But I work a lot with their marketing department. They have an amazing in-house team. So they don't need me to do everything for them. They're fully self-sufficient on their own, but they have a lot of times they just need, extra help because of bandwidth. So, and I'm so blessed to serve. Absolutely. It's a blessing.
Where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Summer_Galvez. That's SUMMER_GALVEZ. And you can also actually visit the DearSummerG website.
Awesome. Can they leave questions there already?
They sure can. There is a chat screen up right now. If you go to DearSummerG.com, there's a screen that's going to pop up and ask you a question, tell you to submit something.
Awesome. All right, Summer, I really appreciate you coming on The Culture Soup. I enjoyed it. Your story's amazing. And we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Mwah. Love you.
Mwah. Love you too. All right. What an awesome conversation with Summer Galvez of SG Creative. That not only wraps up this episode of The Culture Soup, but it wraps up 2018. And I've got to personally thank you for being there with me as I rolled out The Culture Soup in this final quarter of 2018. Remember, we started in October, and gee whiz, look, we've done 10 episodes. That would be 7 regular episodes and 3 bonus episodes. That's awesome. So we won't see you again until 2019. We're going to see you on the B-side. And on the next episode in January 3rd, look forward to hearing from the great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker, the first female millionaire in the United States of America, and her name is Alelia Bundles. And I mentioned before that she was my very first client. I'm so excited to talk to her about women's empowerment. It will be the first of a 2-part series with herself, and then following on January 10th with Miko Branch, the co-founder, and owner of Miss Jessie's. Don't forget that you only have a couple more days to get in your pre-orders for my new ebook. No thanks, I'll just include myself. It's only $9.99. Pre-orders, just register. You don't even have to pay now. They go on sale in 2019 in January. So do that. And then also, those of you who have applied for the 30-minute mentor cohorts, you'll be hearing from me soon. Thank you so much for applying. We've got some great candidates. I can't wait to start our group. Don't forget to tell a friend about us. Follow us on IG and Twitter at The Culture Soup, and go to theculturesoup.com to subscribe. Everybody, have a happy and safe new year. The Culture Soup podcast is a production of No Silos Communication.